始めますね。
はい。お願いします。
じゃあ、今、年倉来たから続けます。それで、ですね。これは、僕の方を作り出して、それで、なんで高橋は出てこないのかな？
あ、この画面。
うん。
なんでしょう。
私は高橋さんの画面見えてますよ。
いや、僕は木本しか出てこないんだね。顔が木本しか出てこない。これかな？これは、アフリカノース、これだ。なんでこうなんだよね。これでっかすぎんだけどさ、どうやって小さくするのかな。これだ。表示。ズームで。あ、小さすぎ。表示、ズームで。125です。125ですね。で、これで、ちょっと待ってくださいね。段取りセットアップしますからね。これを小さくして。あれ。今、土地倉来たからね、それ、画面の修正とかあるんですよ。高橋待ってたの、ずーっと。
そうですね、仕事してます。
あれこれなんで。あなたどっか行っちゃったと思ってたの。
そう。パソコンの前にいます。
パ
ソコンの前にいました。かけてみればよかったですよ。なんか、
そうだよ。アフリカはね、なんだっけな、アフリカはどこだっけな、チャイニーズだっけ？どこだっけ？アフリカアプリフォーチャイニーズ。これだっけ？これやったんだっけ？あ、これやったんだな。じゃあ、これやったんだ。これだ。で、それ今録音してんだけど、でっけえな、どうしよう。これか、これ小さくできるのかな。
私、unnoさんのパソコンのデスクトップは見れてないですよ。unnoさんの顔は見えてるんですけども、デスクトップが見えてない。
見えてない。それはまずい。ちょっと待ってね、今。
だから、資料とか動画が見れない。
それはまずいね。ちょっと待ってね。高橋も見れない？はい、
見えてないです。
見えてない。じゃあちょっと待ってね。これもうちょっと待ってか。あれ？何これ何これあれ？今まで見たことない画面が出てるんですけど。何これ？
unnoさん一回パソコンを再起動したらいいんじゃないですか？
再起動？せっかく今段取りしたのにあれ？
そこでなんか、
これで見えたんじゃない？見えない。
今、unnoさんの顔は見えてます。でもデスクトップは見えてないです。
そっか、unnoさん、そっか、これが、あれになってるんですよ。カメラになってる。
そう。どれ変えるんだっけ？これか？これだ。どうですか、今度は。
大丈夫です。
あれ？大丈夫だけど、これどうやって消すんだっけ？
それ左なんじゃないですか？左の矢印違いますか？
そうだ。あれ？違うよ。
これでかいですね。
これさ、なんかさ、
文字がやたらでかいですけど。
いや、でかいんですけど、このスカイプを消したいんだけど、なんでスカイプの画面が出てくるの？これだ。あれ？ あ、これだ。あ、これですか。どうですか、これで。
大丈夫です。動画が見えてます。
あ、それじゃあですね、これ今録画してんだもん、途中でやるのめんどくさいんで。OK、もう一回、じゃあ、今日の部分を説明しますね。今日はですね、Africa prefers the Chinese regime なんですよ。要するに中国のアフリカなんで、これ、木本に説明したんだけど、もう一回やりますね。
運動さん、これ、チャイナコンセンサスってやつですよね。
違う。
チャイナコンセンサス。
違う。あれと違うよ。これは違うよ。
違うんですか？
中国がアフリカに対してどういう形で関与してるかっていう、そういう、侵略ではないんですよ。チャイナコンセンサスはどちらかっていうと、中国の政治体制を、世界に売り込んでいくってことですけど、このアフリカの場合はですね、初めは僕はそう思ったんですけど、これを調べていく中で、中国は、全くネオコロニアリズム、色はないんです。純粋に、ビジネスとして、アフリカに行ってる。で、人によってはソフトコロニアリズムと言ってますけども。
ソフトコロニアリズム。
まあそうかもしれませんね。例えばどういうことかっていうと、中国人がビジネスするときは、やっぱり鉄道を引くと、その国の、その鉄道引くじゃないですか。お金払って。ところがその国家が、中国に対して返済能力ないんで、返せなくなってきたら中国はどうするかっていうと、そこの金鉱とかダイヤモンド鉱山の権利の一部を、もう譲り受けるっていうようなことを彼らはやるんですね。それは搾取じゃなくて中国人独特の、ビジネス観光としてそれをやってるだけで、搾取じゃないんですね。
軍野さん、それが最近言われてるシャープパワーですよ。
ああ、そうかもしれませんね。で、彼らは別にね、タイはないんですよ。悪気もないし。で、中国の商売っていうのは、100円のものを10円で下取りするようなんてこと平気でやるわけで、それは、搾取じゃないんですね。で、それがやっぱり、これやっぱ、どっちかな。木本なんかさ、スピーカー入れてない？もうさっきみたいに。もしもし、治った。それで、お前んとこのスピーカーダメだよ、それ。それで、まあ、全員っていうよりも、単にまあ、安価でね、提供するんで、鉄道とか高速道路とか橋とか、高層ビル作ったり、ガバメントのオフィス作ったり。それはね、安価でやって、安い金で、もちろん市場価格で安く、彼ら、もともと市場価格で安いんですけど、その結果やっぱりアフリカの人たちっていうのは、技術ないからもう全部中国人に任せるわけですけど、あとやっぱ金の計算がズマみたいに、ズマじゃなくてなんだっけ、この間失脚したズマじゃなくてもう一人。ムガベみたいに足し算とか引き算できない、トップの人が多いんですよね、アフリカ。だから、いいよってやってもらったんだけど返せない、みたいなことがあるんですね。で、ただ、ヨーロッパの人たちっていうのは、本当に搾取ですね、彼らは。未だにそうなんですよ。フランスなんかでもリビアのカダフィを追い落としたのはセキュリティが欲しかったんですね。あれはサルコジでしたけど。で、アメリカもそうなんですよ。アメリカファーストっていうのはもうやっぱりいかに海外を搾取しようかっていう、何もでもないんですね。で、クリントンもそうですけど、そういうふうなことをですね、で中国の投資は違うんですね。6000億ドル今までやってるんですけど、彼らはビジネスでやってるんですね。ビジネス。で、イデオロギーは全く輸出してないです。もう単にビジネス。で、一帯一路っていうのはよく出てきますけど、一帯一路っていうのはアフリカ入ってないんですよ。で、まあ、便乗してやってるっていうことですね。で、中国の今のアフリカに対するインベストメントは、まあ、ヨーロッパはもう利権がもともとあるんで、その中に中国が噛み込んでるって感じですけど、日本もアメリカも入っていけないっていうのは実態ですね。で、彼ら民主主義なんかどうでもよくてですね、やっぱり内紛をいかに押し付けするかっていうことと、やっぱ国家インフラどうするかっていうことなんで、内紛は大体ですね、1960年代に独立が始まったんで、それから半世紀経って、大体内紛がほとんどの、国が収まってきた。まだやってるとこありますけど、大体 収まってきて、で、さあ、いよいよこれから国家インフラだなという、そういうのが今のアフリカの全体の流れですね。で、日本はですね、やっぱり安倍さんが、去年、一昨年300億ドルを、中国の20分の1ですけど、投資するってことを言ったんですけど、どういうふうにやろうとしてるか僕全然知りませんけども、やり方があると思うんですね。ですから、例えば、新幹線売るとか、高橋が言ってるようなスイカ売るとかっていうのはもう絶対ダメですね。中国には勝てないですね。で、中国が何やってるかっていうと、やっぱり講師学院を作ったり、農業推進センターを作ったりしてるんですね。それはもう、どちらかというと、打算抜きでやってるんですけど、日本はやっぱりそういうふうな、教育とかですね、国家計画。サウススーダンではですね、農業部門に対してですね、日本政府か、JICA だと思いますけれども、プランニングをね、2年ぐらいかけて、やっぱり彼にやってあげたっていうのがあるんですけども、そういうのがですね、やっぱり一番彼らにとって今足りない部分ですね。中国もやらないし、欧米もやらないですね。国家計画を支援するっていうのはやらないですね。なぜかというと、その支援する側が何のメリットもない。要するに、ナショナルインテレストないことは、ヨーロッパもアメリカも中国もやらないんですけど、日本はそういうことを結構好んでやるんですね。で、そういうことから、目先では利益にならないんだけれども、そういうことを手伝うことによって、彼らが日本を信頼する。で、前から、高橋にも言っていますように、高橋の会社を説明するっていうことは彼らは説明できますけど、日本人とは誰かっていうことを説明できる、資料とか人がいないんですね。で、日本は今まで海外に対して日本国とはどういう国でどういうことをするんだっていうことを説明資料がないので、私は今年そういう本を書こうと思ってます。英語でですね。で、そうすることによってその本と、行く国、高橋の国とか、木本の国の会社がですね、どういうことをしているかっていう抱き合わせでですね、日本のことを理解してもらうということはやっぱりまず先決として必要だろうと。それがないとですね、日本という国はですね、アフリカの国から見て何ができるのか、何が彼らにとって足りないのかっていうことを、アフリカの国はどこも理解してないんですね。ですから、中東みたいに安倍さんが200億円だったかな、中東に寄付する、200億ドルじゃない、200億ドルか、200億円でね、を寄付するみたいなバカなことを、金をポンと投げるしかない。だから多分アフリカの300億ドルもポンと投げるしかないみたいなことが多分起こってしまうんだろうなと、私は思ってます。それが今日本の問題。で、チャイニーズはですね、YouTube 見れば歴然ですけど、中国人の宣伝ビデオってもう、死ぬほどあるんですね。日本はないんです。もうほとんどない。だからそういう意味では、中国とは何かとか、中国人とは何かとか、何ができるかっていうビデオたくさんあるんで、アフリカ prefers the Chinese regime とそういうタイトルをついたんですね。で、ちょっと見てみますとですね、Many African governments prefer China as an economic partner over Western countries for a number of reasons. First, China's own development experience has instructive value. Second, China fulfills Africa's need for critical infrastructure more cheaply, less bureaucratically, and more quickly. And finally, China portrays Africa more positively as a partner in mutually beneficial cooperation and common prosperity, rather than a doomed continent requiring aid. In July 2010, the Chinese ambassador to South Africa, Shan Xuechun, criticized Western politicians and media who make irresponsible remarks on China-Africa relations. After all, when it comes to colonialism and neocolonialism alike, the West's record has hardly been spotless. We need only be reminded of the cozy relationship between the United States and the ruinous Congolese dictator Mobutu Sese Seko, one of many authoritarian rulers on the continent to have been propped up by Washington. and the African continent proves the Chinese Communist Party is spreading its wings around the world by a commercial rather than military means. It's thus very much government influenced by shopkeepers, one that uses their vast range of activities for its own alliance building purposes. Then we're going to have YouTube, Talk Africa, Lifting Africa's Poor, 2017, June. China and Africa need to join hands to fight poverty. That is a central theme at this year's China-Africa High-Level Think Tank Forum, held at the African Union headquarters in Addis Ababa. で、これで、4億人、アフリカ10億人いますけど、4億人のアフリカ人と4000万人の中国人は、貧困ライン以下、1ドル25セントa dayですね。2063年、これアフリカが作ったやつですけど、2060アフリカ連合が作ったんですけど、2063年ビジョンに向けて、開発戦略の相乗作用、安全保障の協力、人材開発を通じて、アフリカと中国の戦略的パートナーシップを強化している。中国は1億ドルの軍事援助を提示している。で、農業の近代化と産業化はアフリカの経済革新のためには、高い優先度がある。ただ、アフリカ諸国は様々で、国家の規模も違えば、民族が多様な国家でもあれば、資源がある国もない国もある。であるので、開発のやり方は一緒ではない。貧困対策において、エチオピアはまあまあの状況だが、他の諸国は簡単ではない。ガンビアは人口200万ですが、ナイジェリアは1億7000万人もいます。貧困対策の政策は全く異なる。ただ共通して言えるのは、2桁の高い成長率をどう達成するかだということですね。5% の成長では貧困を削減できない。雇用対策も必要だと。成長と貧困の橋渡しは雇用だと。これはさっきも説明したんですけども、貧困を削除するっていうのはですね、子供の数を抑制するっていうのもしないとダメなんですね。今、アフリカは子供の数を抑制できなくて人口がどんどん増えてしまうので、要するに、労働可能人口に対して非労働可能人口が圧倒的に多いんですね。ですから、日本とかヨーロッパと違って高齢者が多いっていうのも、子供が多すぎちゃって国が成長できないっていうのが今のアフリカの現象ですね。で、どこの国家もこうした考えとか計画を持っているんですけれども、実行することは容易じゃない。まず第一にビジョンを持って実行しようとする力のある指導者が必要ですね。さらにそれを実行する体制が不足している。で、特に技術を持った人がいない。ソフト面も大事で、意欲とかリーダーシップの育成も大事だ。やっぱり、これら全てがやっぱり足りないと今のアフリカなんですね。で、アフリカ諸国は独立してから50年経っていますけど、未だに植民地的な要素から抜き出ていない。特に経済面ではまだ自立してない。で G20 でもアフリカの国は1国しか、南アフリカですね。国連常任理事国はない。将来のこうして対応ができるようになるためには、人材育成が急務だということで。植民地的な要素っていうのはどういうことかっていうと、植民地から解放されても、彼らは自分で産業を起こしたりですね、鉱山の開発することできないんで、結局ヨーロッパにアメリカに依存して、カナダに依存してるんですけど、彼らが開発するときにですね、アフリカの政府がですね、汚職絡みでそれを契約するんで、とんでもなく安い金で契約してる。だから結局、ヨーロッパ、西欧の会社が儲かってですね、であと、コラプションしている、政府の親族が儲かって、国民は、そこに4億人って書いてあるように、貧しいまんまだっていうのは一生に大体そうですね。ですから、コラプションっていうのはやっぱり、国権貧しい国ってみんなコラプションしてるんですね。でそういうのが実態です。でそれを、どういうふうにする、コラプションやめさせれば、豊かになる。だから、午前中もやったように、タイの、コラプションで、軍事クーデターやったっていうのは、それはやっぱりそういうふうな意図が背景にあるんですね。で、製造業中国などからアフリカに誘致して雇用を増やす必要がある。モーリシャスはその誘致を成功したりして事例だ。中国はこうしたことに対して対等のパートナーとしてアフリカを見ているんですね。で、中国はインフラ投資に対して支援しています。 で、中国が環境問題に対しても積極。で、それでさっき言った孔子学園とかですね、農業支援センターとかっていうのを、中国が作って支援してるんですね。そういう意味では、まあ、なかなか中国がよくやってる。で、このアフリカの侵攻をどのように対処していくか、中国の経験をそのまま適用することはできない。貧困対策ですね。アフリカは数多くの国家で構成されているし、その背景もまちまちで、一緒に中国の経験を簡単に適用できない。今までアフリカは資源に頼ってきたので、製造業を誘致しようにもそのスキルを持った人がいない。だから雇用も貧困も解決できない。中国の場合は、どう違うかというと、中国の場合ってのはね、アフリカの最大の違いはですね、中国はね、人材育成をものすごくやってきてるんですね。で、アフリカもその人材育成やってきてる割には、その内紛とか内乱でですね、実際に育っていない人が、子供が兵士になったりしてですね、子供、女はですね、売春になったりして、そういうのはずーっと長い間続いてきたという経緯があります。で、だからアフリカ侵攻なくすっていうのは民主主義っていうアメリカ言うような形じゃなくてですね、金融政策、規制の見直しと、成長のための環境整備。で、中国とアフリカの違いをして労働生産性っていうのは、さっき言った、国民のスキルですね、教育がしっかりしているから中国は、労働力として非常にその生産性を上げてきたわけですけども、アフリカにはそれがないんですね。ですから、今後の課題っていうのは、物の供給面の制約とインフラ投資、教育、人材資源、雇用機会の提供であると言ってますけど、まあそういうふうなインフラ部分が全くないのと、それからやっぱり物の供給面の制約っていうのは、これどういう背景があるのかちょっとよく覚えてませんけど、多分ココアなんかいい例です。ココアってどこだっけな？どこを作ったの？ガーナとかね。ココアを例えば輸出するっていう、供給面。するときに、例えばチョコレートの中にアフリカに支払う金の占めるパーセントと、わずか 6% しかない。要するに、もともと安く農家から物を買い上げて、それを、輸出してるっていう、そういう今までのコロニアリズムのかっての、悪弊が残ってるところがあるんですね。そういうふうな適正な価格で物を販売するみたいな習慣がまだほとんど国にないんですね。それからやっぱり例えばアメリカの助成金に、を受けた米がですね、安い金でアフリカに入ってくる。だから、そうするとアフリカはその米の生産ができなくなっちゃうんですね。コンピートできない。だから、要するに、アメリカの米が、しかもアメリカの米の方がアフリカの米より美味しいんですね。だからますます悪循環になってくる。そういうふうな、だからアメリカ農業なんてやっぱり助成金ですから、それによって支えられてアフリカに輸出してるわけ。綿花なんかもそうですけど。で、アフリカなんかも綿花産業ってもうないんですよね。でそういうふうな問題も、あるんですね。でそれはだから、さっき言いましたアメリカファーストっていうのは、俺たちが儲かりゃいいんだと、お前らがどうでもいいよ、みたいなところをアメリカもやってるし、ヨーロッパもやってる。で、ただそういうふうなですね、打算のない国ってのは、中国でもないし、ヨーロッパでもないし、アメリカ、多分世界で先進国、日本だけなんですね。日本だけが打算抜きでそういうふうなことをできる。だから、多分日本が米をアフリカに輸出するとすれば、アメリカみたいに現地の米より安い金額で国家に助成するなんてことはしないですよね。ですから、要するに、相手のことを考えて対応するという、そういうふうな、国民性があるんですね。ですから、ヨーロッパの人から見ると日本人は頭おかしいんじゃないかっていうふうに思われてるのはごく当然で、どこで儲けんのって言うと、やっぱり日本は多分、300億ドルは本当に安倍さんが効率よく使うんであれば、どこでも儲けませんと。で、アフリカの国のために我々は良心的に誠意やりますよ。ですから、ヨーロッパとも違うし、アメリカとも違うし、中国とも違うということを、どういうふうにうまく英語の資料を作って説明するかですね。その資料を作りたいんですね。そうすることに彼ら読めば、こいつらは打算なしで我々のためにやってくれるんだな、というふうな意思を持ってくれると思うんです。そうすれば、それぞれの企業がその資料とね、私の資料と合わせて、企業の紹介の資料をアフリカに持っていけば、彼らは日本をもっとよりよく信用してくれるだろうというのが私の考えですね。これがそういう、そこ。それで、単語はですね、alleviation, rejuvenation, convergent, tilted, endowment, respectable, way off。まあ、だいたいこれみんな使いますね。make a dent。これへっこむっていう make a dent。少しだけ進歩する。withstand。gratify。hamper。hover。時々出てきますね。decouple。しょっちゅう出ますね。groove。parochial。これも出ますよ。spectacle。ね。glance seeking。seductive。peculiarity。chronicle。ね。まあ大体みんな出てくる単語で、この中では出てこないというのはないですね。gratify。
リジュベネーション。
リジュベネーション。これもしょっちゅう出ますね。これね、リジュベネーションっていうよりね、なんだかリジュベレンスとかなんかそういう別の単語ですね。
もともと多分、ラテン語とかです。
いや、これね、純粋によく出てくる。
そうなんです。リエルでいたジュベン、あれって、サッカーの、イタリアのユベントスっていうのがチームがあって、あれもなんか若しいみたいな、そういう。
ああ、そうなん
多分、ラテン語から来てる。
いや、これよく出てくるんだよ。これどっか
これ、リジュベネーション。
あるけど、そうじゃない、違う単語でね、よく出てくる。なんだっけな、ちょっと待ってください。リジュベネーションね。これじゃ出てこないのか。こっちだな。こっちだな。違うわ。未成年かな。
未成年。
10ってじゃリジュベネーション。これですね。10。青少年10。リジュベネーション。ですね。それからね、それね、なんか、ですね。青年ハンド出てこないな。青年かな。うわぁ。出てこないか。さっきの未成年かな。
わかりました。
10しか出てこないね。ちょっとちゃんとした単語忘れちゃったけど、まあそういうことですね。OK。それで、let's going to start for video. So, this is about 28 minutes. We have just the minute we just viewed with Kimoto, but let's go to start from again. From start. Okay, from start. Just a moment. This one. あれこれしょうがないのか。オーバーヘッドがあるんだよね。Okay, let's have a look. This is when the last year, June. Talk Africa, lifting Africa pro. アフリカの貧乏を対策しましょう。Okay? So this is an interesting video.
This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
环顾当前当今世界，
The world today is in greater uncertainties and destabilizing factors. Peace and development are far from being achieved in many parts of the world. Close to 400 million people in Africa and 40 million in China live under the poverty line. China and Africa need to join hands in fighting poverty and achieving common development. This is our responsibility to future generations, the shared objective of our people, and the inherent part of human progress.
China and Africa need to join hands to fight poverty. Now that is the central theme at the China-Africa High-Level Think Tank Forum taking place here at the African Union headquarters in Addis Ababa. And thus experts from China and Africa discuss poverty alleviation for common prosperity. How will the solutions derived here address the developmental priorities of African countries, many of them at varied stages of development? I'm Beatrice Marshall. Welcome to Talk Africa from the African Union headquarters in Addis Ababa. Now, in the wake of uncertainties facing a changing world environment, cooperation between China and Africa in jointly addressing challenges facing the world economy is becoming key. The Africa-China think tank is one such forum. Jerome Chala tells us more.
This is the first high-level forum organized by the African Union and China. It aims to alleviate poverty through shared experiences.
Both China and Africa are now standing at a new starting point for development and rejuvenation. We have the confidence, we have the ability and wisdom to strengthen solidarity and cooperation to fight against poverty, strive for common prosperity, and jointly embrace a brighter future.
It is also an opportunity for me to express my happiness and pleasure to see the relation between China and Africa flourishing.
To combat poverty, China has laid out a 5-point proposal for Africa. It includes synergizing development strategies, peace and security cooperation, and human resource development.
We will deepen cooperation with the AU to build closer partnership, to guide China-Africa solidarity and cooperation and promote our common development, and provide new impetus to our comprehensive strategic partnership and cooperation.
AUC Chairperson Moussa Faki Mahamat has welcomed China's proposal.
On most issues, we have a convergent view with China. So this obviously corresponds to Agenda 2063 and also the priorities as identified during this think tank forum.
Participants say this platform offers much needed insight into development policies for the continent. China has also pledged $100 million in military assistance for Africa to reinforce its peacekeeping missions, and it has promised to support efforts to expand the capacity of the African Center for Disease Control. Glumtala CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Agricultural modernization and industrialization have been touted as some of the most immediate priorities for Africa's economic transformation. Now, on the sidelines of this forum, I sat down with Professor Emmanuel Nadozie. He tells me exactly what Africa is doing to tailor solutions that are best suited for Africa's local conditions. Professor Nadozie, thank you very much for your time. I want to start with a comment made by Foreign Minister Wang Yi. Then he talked about tailor-making development plans to suit local situations. Yes. When we talk about African policy making, are we tailor-making our plans to suit our local situations?
Well, I can say yes and no. In some countries, this is happening, and they have learned the fact that you have to have development within the context of your own reality, your own history, your own size, your own resource endowments, and every other thing that you can think about. You can learn lessons from other countries, but you need to adapt them to your own local reality. Especially if you, for instance, if you're a large country that is multi-ethnic, that has multi-ethnicity, so managing diversity becomes an issue. The same way that a country that has one ethnic group would approach development will not be exactly the same way you have to approach that. A resource-rich country and a resource-poor country would have two different things, different ways to approach development. So I agree with the minister that adapting development to the local conditions is a very important prerequisite.
You just mentioned that Africa is diverse, different levels of development. So what kind of development plans is Africa putting in place in the diverse countries so that to ensure that poverty is alleviated, particularly as we head towards Agenda 2063?
Well, the result is also mixed. A country like Ethiopia has really made a lot of strides, judging from where it came from, in terms of having large amounts of poor people. But in a single generation, it has managed to really reduce this in a respectable manner. But unfortunately, if you go across many other countries, the reduction is very marginal. We had the story about China today. In 20 years was able to really put 700 million people out of poverty and bring them into economic progress. But the kind of policies that one has to put in place, as I said before, are policies that are well thought out and reflect the reality of the country. And the reason I'm saying that is that the Gambia is less than 2 million people. Nigeria has over 170 million people. So the policy that Gambia will put in place will be totally different from the one that Nigeria will put in place. But one thing, there are things that are common. Country must have a growth that is at least double-digit, very high levels of growth, what I call quality growth, that is also sustained for a period of time, in order for it to have an impact on poverty. So growing at 4 or 5% is not going to cut it. But again, it has to be broad-based growth, and especially growth that affects the areas where poor people are, whether it's in agriculture or in the informal sector or in other areas. That's how you can make an impact. But if you want to sustainably reduce poverty, you've got to have a jobs or employment policy, because what you call the missing link between growth and poverty is employment. Ultimately, jobs have to be created.
You have mentioned that there are countries that are resource poor and that are still lagging behind, though.
Yes.
And you've made a comparison between one large, one small. But for those countries that you feel are lagging behind, what is the challenge for them?
Well, the challenge for many African countries is actually a challenge of leadership. Unfortunately, we have to call a spade a spade. Because no matter how good a strategy you have, no matter how good an intention you have to move forward, and look at all these countries, they all have fantastic, we want to be emerging economy in 2025. We want to, be a middle-income country by 2020. We want to have...
What he said, this is the point, European countries, American countries, and China cannot help them to implement their strategy or planning. And this is what I'm talking about. The Japanese can't help them, like this area. Exactly what he said.
This growth and structural transformation program everywhere. All of them have very good plans. But some are not able to really translate this plan into development results, reducing poverty significantly, diversifying the economy, providing jobs for young people, and improving the sort of women. Now, the point is, because in the countries where it is happening, you will see a visionary leader who is also holding people accountable, and who is not only having a vision, but also ensuring that the vision is implemented, and who has paid attention to a critical factor which is hindering Africa's development, and which is the lack of capacity. And that's where the African Capacity Building Foundation comes into the picture, that we have tried to bring this back at the center of the debate, to say if you don't have the critical technical skills you need, if you don't have the number of skilled workers, if you don't retain them in your country and fully utilize them, you're not going to move forward. You will only have good plans.
He said the skilled worker, right? Skilled worker is just like not only the Africa, but also the United States and Germany. They seriously need to consider to train skilled worker, because currently, like America, they don't need non-skilled worker, like working at automobile factory. They need more advanced technology. They're going to require for ICT revolution, and AI robotics. For those areas, they need another career or different skill required. So sort of things is the same thing you're talking about in Africa.
And bad results. You have to strengthen your institutions as well. So institutional capacity is very important. And then, of course, the last one where leadership falls in is the soft capacities of the changing mindset, creating leadership at all levels that will drive this agenda.
Well, the AUC chair did mention as well that...
So that means that if Mr. Abe is going to invest $300 million US for Africa, I think best way she is going to consider for building skill type of university, skill training type of university, or invite African students to invite to Japanese college or university, whatever. Sort of effort they try to make an investment instead of competition for the like railway or highway, sort of infrastructure building. But the infrastructure building in China is very heavy experience. So Japan needs to consider much more software oriented kind of involvement. I recommend them to do that.
Part of some of the reasons that has made some African countries lag behind issues such as slavery, issues such as colonialism that have impacted on Africa's development plans. Does Africa recognize that though, and what are we doing about it?
Well, there's no question that history has an impact on contemporary situation. It's difficult for us to really correctly estimate the impact of slavery or how long it will take for this legacy and impact to wear off. I think I worry more about the new colonial situation than the colonial issues, because after all, politically speaking, many countries got independent.
He said new colonialism. New colonialism is actually, I just explained in Japanese explanation, and they don't, the African countries, they don't have skill to develop mining industry. They don't have skill for any kind of industry. So they try to ask for European country or Canada, United States, for their involvement to African industry. And so the government, African government try to make contract with those countries' firm. Then they try to sell investment conditions more cheaper way, and instead they want to get money from bribe from those companies. So government, family, and government, president, and their family get rich instead of ordinary people. So this is the current prevailing situation we're undergoing.
Over 50 years now. But the international environment and the geopolitical arrangements may not have completely liberated African countries, especially from an economic standpoint. If you look at it, Africa is not represented in the international arena in any meaningful way. There's only one African country in the G20. Africa is not a permanent member of the UN Security Council. If you look at other international bodies, you see that Africa is also either not adequately represented or does not have a voice. Yeah, but I would differ a little bit on that.
Oh, he just complained for the African people cannot involve in G20 or they cannot involve in global society. But exactly the same thing happened for Japanese people, Japanese government. They are not sending to the skilled worker to United Nations. They don't send the people to the global kind of organization. And Japanese, in the case of Japanese cases, it's mainly because of the language. But Africa is the current situation is also they cannot send skilled people at the global level.
To say if African countries are waiting for somebody to come and develop them, they will have to wait for a very long time. Countries that have moved forward took their own destiny in their hands. Whether you have resources or you don't. Actually, when I say resources, let me qualify whether you have natural resources or not. Because every country has resources. It could be human resources. It could be natural resources. Korea did not have natural resources. But it did focus on the one that it has, which is human resources, make sure they were very well educated. They paid attention to making sure they are very well skilled and that they are fully utilized. So if we pay attention to our educational systems, and once and for all, ensure that the African universities educate African young people to solve Africa's problems, and also ensure that we pay more attention to technical and vocational education and training programs, that will actually...
He said vocational program is means skill training,職業訓練.
Make young people to be employable or self-employable. Then we are beginning to talk.
I'm hearing that you're very optimistic, so I want you to give me some examples of some success stories on the continent and what you think they're getting right.
Well, success stories are, unfortunately, in the past we couldn't say many, but these days I think we are very, very happy to say that quite a few countries have made some progress that are really, really notable and remarkable. In this country where we are, is an example of transforming the agriculture, which has really made a dent in poverty. They've also embarked upon an industrialization program focusing on manufacturing, because they recognize that there will be migration of manufacturing jobs, over 50 million jobs that will be migrated every year from outside, from China and the rest of them. And so they recognize that putting the conditions right and the business environment right will help them to be able to attract some of these investments. So that's one example. You go to Mauritius, and also everybody knows that that's a country that has been able to really move from just being a sugarcane producer to a country that has a highly diversified economy. In terms of growth, a lot of African countries are among the highest growing countries in the world today. And the continent has come a long way. It was able to withstand the global economic crisis, and was able to maintain respectable growth rates in spite of all the global economic challenges. But the continent cannot continue to depend on export of primary commodities.
So at the end of the forum, of course, participants here want a take-home and a focus for this forum. What will that be, and what will be the follow-up mechanism for this?
Well, what I heard that was extremely gratifying is the fact that, number one, China indicates that it recognizes Africa's, interest in the process of supporting the continent, that it will take Africa's interest into consideration. If you compare this with the sort of partnership that Africa had in the past, you will see that it is more or less a partnership that was not necessarily geared towards the interest of the continent or on equal terms, where Africa has a similar equal voice and respect and recognition that it deserves. So that is a very important dimension coming from the Chinese. The second thing that I also heard is that they are willing to continue the support using the mechanism of focus, especially in the major area of infrastructure development.
Oh, she said, okay, different from Western countries, China is doing business with African people with equal partnership. This is a big difference. I think Japan is the same. Japan is not the same. Japan is always, try to treat African people not equal, So, like for Asian people. But Chinese people try to treat them as equal. This is a big difference.
Which is the thing that is hobbling Africa's development moving forward. And believe it or not, the one single investment or factor that can really help poverty to reduce significantly is infrastructure development. Believe it or not. Whether it's energy or water or railroad and road transportation and so on and so forth, it does transform things. So their willingness to work with Africa in really doing this infrastructure development is something that I believe will be important. The third thing is that they are also talking about the green development approach, which means that they are thinking that you cannot, in the process of trying to support development of the continent, do that at the expense of the environment. Because African countries, although some people will argue that you are not one of the culprits in terms of damaging the environment and creating greenhouse gases and creating climate change, but Africa is the number one sufferer of this problem. And as a continent that will be most affected by climate change, it needs to be a bit more sensitive to the issues and even lead in the process. So focusing on green growth development by China, I think, is a welcome issue. But having this kind of mutual respect engagement.
Why he said climate change? Because Africa is year by year is forestification is declining, and the desert is increasing. So they try to more consider for the farming, agriculture business. They need more seriously to consider climate change.
Engagement that takes the interest of Africa into consideration and try to really support Africa based on what African countries determine as a priority, not coming to dictate to the continent how they should do things. I think this is my major takeaway from it.
Right, Professor Ndozie, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
He has very good knowledge about how to improve Africa. Okay, and so we have still African people, some people, he has very good skill, good knowledge. Okay, this is one example.
We're going to take a short break now, and when we come back, we'll take a look at the different approaches in tackling poverty on the continent. To stay with us.
I want to break, but whenever I break, I don't know how to start again. So this time, let's go into continent. Oh, I couldn't finish Africa today. Chinese in Africa. We need to continue next week. Next week again. Chinese in Africa again. But good. He's very good fish.
And now to give us further insight into Africa's efforts at poverty alleviation, I have my expert guests here, Professor Garth Lapierre. He's a professor at the University of Pretoria, Department of Political Sciences. Welcome to the program. Also, Professor Li Xiaoyuan, he's from the China Agriculture University. And also with me, Charles Ochekuchu Onunaiju. He's a director.
Oh, by the way, this is the CCTV. Oh, yeah. CCTN is Chinese TV. Okay, Chinese TV is very interesting thing is always they try to put Chinese in the kind of column or discussion. Okay, so he is there. They try to make a video more neutral way, but still they try to put Chinese in. It's very clever. Okay, but I don't know what kind of opinion he's going to have, but just listen. And some cases, the Chinese just put in a member and speak out opinion, but not so much valuable. But I don't know this case. But Chinese way, they try to do that. But very fair to handle this issue for discussing. Just
the Center for China Studies in Nigeria. Charles, let me start off with you because I want to get all of you, your overview of Africa's efforts in poverty alleviation. Give us a brief overview of what you have seen so far in terms of Africa's efforts in poverty alleviation.
Well, you see, this is historical. There has always been a great vision of African leadership at the start to get life of prosperity for the people. The whole essence of the struggle against colonialism is to hand over Africa her own destiny so that she could make her people prosperous. Ironically, that didn't happen 50 years after we had our independence, and we are now restarting on another platform to advance this vision of poverty, eradicating poverty in Africa. And I think what we have done here today was to synergize with our Chinese friends on the perspectives on how they did it, because we've also seen a successful experiment in pushing back poverty. And I think the perspective that have been generously expressed both by our Chinese friends and of course African scholars will combine very effectively in giving us a new momentum in challenging the poverty.
Let's look at that new momentum from China's side in challenging poverty. First, what are your views, though? What do you think about Africa's poverty levels at the moment? Are we still that far back, 50 years after independence?
I would say the first, because when we talk about the experiences and the lessons from China, And we have to be very careful that African is not one country, and we cannot make a comparison between the China and the African in a very simple manner. And at the same time, the experience and the lessons from China can really provide some kind of reference for Africa. The critical issue for me, and I would say from the Chinese perspective, Africans' poverty reduction is that the decoupling between the growth and the poverty reduction. So we look for last 10 years, even the last 10 to 15 years. If you look for Africans' growth record, then African is okay. You know, African has been performing and in a very good manner. And from 6 to 7% the growth rate is relatively high. However, at the same time, you see the poverty reduction performance is not really satisfied. From that point of view, I would say what China has achieved in high economic growth associated with poverty reduction, dramatic reduction of poverty. And the critical issue, that's two areas. One is technically speaking, and how to link growth and the poverty reduction. We have to really look at the transformation, effective transformation.
Professor Lepere, I want to hear your views.
In my view,
I think he is talking very good, this Chinese.
I think the Africa Rising narrative is somewhat exaggerated because the growth has been rather parochial, concentrated as it has been in countries with extractive industries, essentially oil. There are very few countries that have grown in terms of a productive, dynamic momentum. Essentially, the growth is driven by demand for commodities. It is rent-seeking, static growth. It is not based on productive capacity. That productive capacity is sorely lacking, and that is why the figures of unemployment and inequality are so stark. If you cannot address the structural problems of inequality, low growth, unemployment, you will not be able to address the bigger structural problem of poverty.
Right. Charles, I want to get your view.
Yeah,
he is talking about Africa's structural problem without solving those issues. I would like to mean the unemployment and also the insufficient industry development. They cannot recover any poverty issues.
Population dividend, or this demographic dividend that we so much talk about in Africa, in my view, is a real challenge because, like Mao said, if you have a population that has no productive capacity, it's basically a heap of sand. It does not have labor, if it does not have labor implication, if it does not have implication to transform the economy, it's simply dormant. So the dividend may remain still potential without realizing it, except it is actively transformed into a productive labor force that transforms the economy. Be that the case, I want to say very frankly that the broad question, the issue of policy questions are implication of interpreting an existential reality. Except to solve the problem, the fundamental problem, you cannot get along with the routines. Routines are policy making. They are simpler. It is much easier to grasp the fundamentals. That is the experience of China, grasping the fundamentals, understanding the fundamentals, and readjusting your policy implication according to your interpretation of reality, taking into account existential facts about the international situation and your peculiarities as a people. Without this, policy somersault will remain our bane. And inasmuch as it remains our bane, we will continue to chase the same question. It is ironic, poverty question was the core question. The core promise of post-independence is that when Africa is free, when Africa can govern itself, we can get our people freed, we can get our young men. 50 years, 60 years after, we are still addressing this question because the fundamental has not been deeply and profoundly appreciated. That is why the policy implication has not fitted in properly to the fundamental framework.
Let me get your views here because I know Professor Lee mentioned earlier that we should not really compare China's situation in Africa. But Professor Lepere, I want to get your view here. What similarities or differences do you see?
But the former guy's opinion is not very clear. Do you understand? I don't understand what he means. What he say, policy or fundamental need to concern for the observe Chinese what they did and Mao Zedong did, but what is his intention? I don't understand. You guys, do you understand?
But he
could you give us more? I can't hear you. What do you say?
Okay. Hello?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Even if poverty and economic growth is not having done, but the policy should focus on the one that alleviate the poverty. Then
Takashi, I can't hear you. A little bit more closer to your mic.
yeah, I'm doing that. I'm doing that.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So any case of the relationship between poverty and economic growth, whether it's directly connecting or indirectly affecting, but the policy in place, the policy that will be implemented should focus on the outcome and result or effect in doing the positive role in alleviating the poverty. Then they have to focus on what is the root cause of making this poverty fundamentally. Otherwise, as someone mentioned earlier, economic growth in some part of the continent will continue to grow, but just leaving the poverty issue behind. So, anyway, they have to tackle this poverty issue as a main and core thing to do something.
So he said policy issue. Sorry, again, explain why policy issues.
I think his point is the policy and direction is not still not enough.
Oh, not enough.
Directly, yes, not enough. Then they should see more fundamental part of making this policy.
Okay. So let's continue. Okay.
In China's approach, in Africa's approach, in addressing poverty on the continent?
Well, I think, for me, I think China got the institutional regulatory environment right. And by that I mean, a very tight social contract between the institutions of the state and the party and the people at all levels of society. So you have sort of a broad consensus around what needs to be done in order to harness the energies of people. And this becomes very evident if you read Xi Jinping's book, Up and Out of Poverty, because it really chronicles his experiences in a very poor part of China called Nangde, and how he went about learning the experiences of people and then bringing them into this kind of social contract. I think lifting 720 million people out is that social contract writ large. I think in Africa we've got the fundamentals more or less right. The broad regulatory governance environment has improved, not only in terms of democratization, but if you look at fiscal, monetary policy, the regulatory environment, the general environment for growth is there. It's just getting the institutional mix right and the political and policy momentum to drive it forward.
Professor Lee, China's population has been like 1.3 billion, able to feed its people. Africa's population is now heading towards the 1.2 billion mark, still unable to be food self-sufficient, for instance. So where is the disconnect?
And the issue here is that it's not really the population growth rate itself. Is the connection and the balance, because if you have a high labor in productivity, even you have a higher population growth rate, you can still manage. But in African perspective, if you see labor productivity both in agriculture and industry and other sectors very, very low. Therefore, there's two ways. One is that you look for the population control issues, and at the same time you're looking for the improvement of labor productivity. So that two issues. From that two perspective, it rather requires a kind of very, very, very careful and strong intervention from the state, through the state development policies. And that areas we have today very clearly from our participants share a lot that how China actually manage. But China has very different historical political conditions, and it's very difficult for African to look at that kind of simply, but essence very similar. Essence means and how to enable the state to act effectively, looking at what you have mentioned, that kind of local context. And from that perspective, I see African is moving. If you see Ethiopia currently, you see I've been here for over last 10 years, been here many times, and I have personally seen progress. And I have also seen the country like Ethiopia and a country like Tanzania in Dar es Salaam also moving. So, and I see very, very optimistically, and the African countries moving the way that not different from what China actually been doing, and different from what African have been doing before. So.
We're going to wind up in a minute, but I just want to get one final view from all of you, and very briefly though. Professor Lepere, I'll start off with you though. If there's one critical issue that you think could be implemented for Africa today as a recommendation for poverty alleviation, one critical aspect, what would that be?
Address the supply side constraints. Infrastructure, invest in education, build human capital, give people opportunities.
Professor Lee.
And look at the small-scale farmer, and link that kind into the value chain, and also look, the vocational training, vocational education system first, rather than look for the big education university everything.
Right, Charles.
Re-engage with the existential African reality to redesign the political, social, and economic infrastructure that is relevant to our challenge and our experience, and that will be very germane to our sustainable and inclusive development. Re-engaging in this existential reality, in my view, is fundamental. We must get it right before we can put on the plans of its policy implications.
Right, a very insightful discussion there. Gentlemen, I must thank you all. Professor Garth Lepere, Charles Chuku Ununaiju, and Professor Lee Xiaoyun, thank you all for your very insightful dialogue here. And that's all we have time for this week on Talk Africa. But you can continue this conversation with us by joining us on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. And join us again next week for more Talk Africa. From Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, I'm BFS Show. Goodbye.
Okay, this is the first video today I show you, and unfortunately I want to handle more Chinese, but next week still I have some more time, but I want to discuss about the other issue. But next week again I try to do how China is changing Africa, and next the other one is Talk Africa again, Chinese technology in Africa. This one is somebody from Chinese came to Africa to make presentation, and also then after that also Talk Africa, Africa's high-speed rail network by China, sort of series of Chinese, but I try to do it again. Also, following that, also I'm going to give you Japanese in China and Japanese in Africa. That is terrible. Terrible. Okay, she speaks some effort in Africa, but she does not well about that. Some other organization, or I don't know what government organization, but speak as Africa, but she does not well. But I'm going to show you the current Japanese is knowledge or skill toward Africa. So we need to reconsider Japanese responsibility. What's going on? Okay. So this video is I want to finalize it, but how do you want to do this? How are they going to do it? Just a moment. Oh? I didn't? Yes, I did. Yeah. Oh? Again. Click here to